The Vegas Forward podcast delves into the lives of the people in our community, uncovering not only what they do, but who they are. Business may keep our city strong, but it's the individuals that continue to create, innovate, and push Vegas forward. Cool. So let's get started. I'm super excited to have you on. It's been a long time. I was on your podcast, Jake. So we got Jake Gallen here of the Jake Gallen podcast and the co-founder of Native Research.
Hey.
Welcome to the show, buddy.
Man, that was what, a year ago?
That I was on your podcast?
Yeah.
Longer. That was pre-COVID.
Oh, wow. It was.
Yeah.
No, I started the podcast during COVID. So,
oh, did you?
So yeah, maybe a little over a year. You were definitely like in the single digits or double digits.
Oh, okay. But I couldn't remember how long ago it was.
But even just being here for me, it brings me back a little bit of nostalgia because we met before the podcast. We met when I was working on Chameleon at the time. And we needed, myself and Corey, who was the co-founder, needed a lot of help on the back end. That was before I really understood how technology operated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've got a little history. So it's super cool having you on. I'm not as professional as you at the podcasting, by the way. So I do my best.
I love the show. I tune into multiple episodes. Your cameras are definitely much better than mine. And this facility is much better than my 400 square foot apartment.
Well, I'll take 2 wins out of 10. So let's start off at the beginning. You were born and raised here in Vegas, right?
One of the unicorns, man. Only 25% of the Las Vegas population is from Vegas.
Which is wild, right?
Isn't it? It seems weird because I hung out, obviously being born and raised here. UNLV is full of a lot of natives. It's a commuter school. But then once you get outside of UNLV in that ecosystem, you realize no one's from here.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say probably before I changed the podcast to crypto stuff primarily, I'd say only maybe 20%, 1 in 5 people were from Vegas. So yeah. That's a very, very unique mindset. But yeah, I'm born and raised here. I just turned 30, so officially old now, I guess.
Man.
Yeah, right. Grew up on the east side, like lower income family, went to Chaparral High School. Graduation rate was 50% or lower every year, so not a lot of attention for education. Okay. Everyone kind of just wanted to hang out and party, and
yeah,
it was funny. We'd walk. Me and my friend would walk to school every day, and you would just see half the school walking the other direction when you get there. Everyone just ditches. Yeah.
Is that still the case at high school? Or
still, it's gotten a little bit better now, but it has to do with the area that it's in. And once Del Sol was created and a bunch of the zoning, it took a lot of the. I guess you could say the upper class people that lived kind of closer to Del Sol area out. So everyone in Chap is just fighting for their life. Honestly, it's kind of sad to see a lot of kids are living on their own. Their mom works 2-3 jobs, single family. It's been tough.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bizarre problem we have here, right? Because we've got all this money with casinos. We have marijuana is legal, right? Mm-hmm. And there's all these tax dollars from that, and like, where is it all going?
It really makes
going to schools.
It does, yeah. It really makes you wonder what that is. So then, after graduated, I went to UNLV, studied kinesiology. There was only maybe 5 or 10 of us from my high school that went to UNLV, so pretty much started all over. I joined AEPI, which was Jewish fraternity there. That helped me really grow out socially, just new friend groups. Obviously, it was always part of the culture, but different backgrounds. Most of them grew up on the west side, so they had very different upbringings from me.
Sure.
While I was there, worked 40 hours a week, worked on the strip, typical Vegas kid.
Nightlife, right?
First, I started day life, so pools.
So that was your first job?
First, yeah. So I've actually only had 2 jobs ever before just going full-time entrepreneur. It's a running joke in Vegas that you always say start as a lifeguard, and now we hear, because most of the people who work in the industry start as a lifeguard of some sort. So started as a lifeguard, worked my way up to become a cabana host. The last year they offered me to be an assistant manager, and I said no because I just seen like the people who work in hospitality or managers just get run into the ground working 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. So when that happened, Omnia nightclub was about to open up. Went there and auditioned. Auditions, out here, very rigorous, torment some people's mental capacity.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to stand on an X shirtless, or if you're a woman in a bikini, and you basically just get judged 3 questions. And oh man, it's rough. But fortunately, I was hired. Out of 2,000 bussers that applied, they only hired 70.
Oh, wow.
So I was in that selection process, and that really helped. That Omnia was like the best launch pad I could ever have.
Sure.
Meaning that is, I don't know if anyone that's been on that's worked nightlife or day life here, you can make a lot of money really fast. A lot of people in there making 6 figures, working 3-4 days a week.
Yep.
And so then it goes on both sides. You can either take that money and invest it in yourself, or you just go and put it back into the system and go out and party.
Which is what I did.
That's what I did too. Yeah, I did it for a little while, and then after about 2 years, 3 years, realized that life was going in the complete opposite direction. So then after I graduated and started my entrepreneurship in 2016, I started getting into Forex, started Omnia in 2015. That first year of graduation, I just went and partied all year, traveling the country, going to raves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Started entrepreneurship, tried writing a book, still sitting on my computer, haven't published it yet, about like raving. Then I got into Forex, which is trading foreign currencies.
Okay.
In today's climate, probably makes a killing whoever's doing that because of all the volatility.
Chaos, yeah.
And then 2017 was probably the biggest year for me. Got involved into multiple things. Opened up Next Gen Pickers, which was an antique store with my father. As we grew up in the lower middle class kind of family, after he was a construction worker, lost a job in 2008, got into the storage wars type thing, buying storage units at auction, going to yard sales, like traveling the state, trying to find like unique items.
Is he still doing that, or
still does it? Does
cool.
yard sales at his house, the house I grew up in, every Saturday, and if it's good weather, they still make $500 or more. Has a pretty big community. Yeah. They're old school. My parents are a little bit older, like mid 60s.
Okay.
So they are not for technology at all.
Yeah, exactly.
He still goes around and puts up like yard sale signs, like in the neighborhoods.
That's awesome.
Still super old school.
That's cool.
So open up Next Gen Pickers. That was my first storefront business. That same year, Corey moved down from Reno, and we refounded Chameleon, which was a ticket verification app. Yeah. And then that same year, also got involved into cryptocurrency.
And that was gaining a lot of momentum, right?
Yeah. Chameleon was a cool project. Corey and I ended up living together. We were partnered with like Revelation and multiple ticket providers. Ultimately, what it came down to is we built out the proof of concept. The company we had contracted to do it said that everything was built in the States. As we started getting the software, started seeing grammatical errors and language barriers, and we're like, this is not built in the States. So after the proof of concept and we started partnering up, we started getting, I think we had up to 2,000 downloads at one point. We started seeing a lot of scaling issues, a lot of lag, a lot of freezing. Sure. Yeah. And so then when we would try to reach out to the tech team, there was like a 12-hour, 24-hour delay. Yeah. Became problems. We had investors that were going to come in. They all bailed out. And so fortunately for us, we actually decided to close up shop towards the end of January 2020, right before the pandemic. So I actually saved our ass like hardcore
right before.
From that.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, we deal with that at Adlava all the time. Is customers come to us and there's so many companies that build apps, but they don't build them properly. Mm-hmm. And so we get a lot of calls. We call them rescue projects. Yeah. Because it unfortunately happens a lot. And I always feel bad for people because they spend less money, but it's going towards nothing, right? Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways. So that's how we met. Was you're trying to rescue us? Yes, yeah. So we were trying to get money from multiple investors that were in. Investors get cold feet all the time. Sure. Sort of I've learned through multiple projects. Yep. So we closed that up. The antique store closed up the end of 2019. So at that point, I was only in crypto. Crypto bear market 2018, 19, 20, very grueling. So during that time, I was working at Omnia. I got sober for little over 3 years during that time, and was just taking 50% of what I was making at the nightclub and just buying Bitcoin, buying Dogecoin. And what year did you get into it? 2017 was my first investment. I discovered Ethereum in 2016. I thought smart contracts was a cool concept, but I had no financial background, so I didn't understand the currency component to it. I understood the technology. Yeah. I didn't realize you could buy the currency component to it, which at that point it was literally in the cent still, so could have made a killing. Ended up buying ETH, was my first purchase in April of 2020. Or April of 2017, I mean. It was around $100 at the time. And how did you learn about cryptocurrency? Because we were bullshitting before, and I was like, I don't know. I'm in technology, and I don't know anything about it. I've got friends that are into it, and how did you learn it? And what would you recommend other people to do to kind of get educated on cryptocurrency? Back in 2017, there was not that much information out there. It was very asymmetric. Podcasts were. How'd you hear about it? So it's a funny story, actually. So one of my father's friends
was starting an altcoin project. I won't mention it because it now does not exist.
Okay.
I made a small investment into that. And at the time, as I was looking up that project, I started looking up Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I was like, oh, I remember looking up Ethereum. Then really Bitcoin was what caught my eye more than anything. The idea of Satoshi, pseudonymous founder. And from then I went down what is known as the crypto rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
Could not consume more information, spending 12 hours a day just learning, following accounts on Twitter. Twitter is the primary communication platform for crypto. Always has been. I don't think that's getting displaced anytime soon. Yeah. Discord didn't really exist, or it wasn't that popular back then.
Reddit too, probably. Or?
Reddit was really popular. Yeah, the cryptocurrency forum r/cryptocurrency and r/Bitcoin. That's when they were still under 100,000 members in each. So more you're just going off of your own technical comprehension and then what other influencers are saying. Mm-hmm. Very wild chaos. Listening to some podcasts. YouTube is always cringe. YouTube's just full of just people grabbing your attention, trying to say shill the next 10,000x coin, which never happens. So don't follow the YouTube influencers. They are incentivized. They are incentivized to dump on you.
Yeah, so it's basically ads.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, a lot of them get paid actually to bring guests on or promote certain types of projects. So at the time, I was just dabbling. I was investing. I was trading things like Ant shares, which is Neo, and Bitcoin, all these different altcoins. And I ended up making a pretty significant amount. And then in 2018, I took all that money, put it into an ICO, and got wrecked. Lost everything. Everything that I had made through 2017, lost it all. Had to start all over again. Okay. So I waited for Bitcoin to bottom out in 2018. And I started buying Bitcoin back around $3,500. Mm-hmm. And I said that anything under $10,000, I'm just going to aggressively buy until it's not $10,000. And that's basically what I did up until the pandemic. Okay. And I always knew crypto was my passion. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it specifically. Mm-hmm. I believe in the technology. I believe it's still going to be the financial system of the future. But I didn't want to work for anybody else. Yeah. I knew that Omnia was a way to source capital. Sure. And that's why I was spreading it apart or across all these different businesses, because I didn't know what was going to hit. And just from learning from different entrepreneurs and reading, you generally don't hit on your first entrepreneurial endeavor. I know you've had a few before this as well. Sure, yeah. You have to learn through different types of experiences. So
I spent a ton of money on domain names.
You're a domain order.
Yeah. So I was like, I had a car accident, got not a lot of money, blew all that on domain names. So we've all been there. Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, I was actually buying a bunch of ENS domains, which I'll talk about in a second, because that's even further down the rabbit hole. But yeah, so I was just buying crypto, studying everything, still spending 2-4 hours a day while working the nightclub and getting sober and trying to figure out my life. During that time, I thought of the idea of the Guest List podcast as a big fan of Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss and a lot of these individual podcast hosts. Mm-hmm. I started noticing that the podcast hosts who were just individual, no co-hosts, were increasingly becoming more powerful. Their voice was extending across many countries, and then they were able to take those talents and then build businesses outside of it.
Correct. Yep.
So I realized this, but at the time when I thought of the guest list, I was still working on the other businesses, Chameleon and Next Gen. So I waited for those to close up, and I started researching podcasts. I literally went through all of Joe Rogan's first 10, watched them completely. And I probably watched about 200 or 300, like all the way through, just jotting down when he used filler words like I'm an and how his progress was going, and where try to see where he finally found like his footing within his podcast hosting skills. Yep. And I learned a lot from that, and I did the same for a bunch of other hosts as well. And wrote down a list of like 200 people in Vegas, because I always realized growing up here in Vegas, I was always told Vegas is going to be the next LA. Vegas is going to be the next LA. People still say it to this day. Sure. But I knew that the focus of Vegas is obviously partying, but I started seeing all these different markets popping up between like the adult entertainment industry, small tech. We had Tony Hsieh's tech boom as well. So I always believed that Vegas is going to be not only an entertainment capital or an experience capital world, but it has one of the best brand recognition names across the world in terms of cities. So I really wanted to double down on it. And when I looked at podcasts in Vegas, they're all just shows that talk about the Strip. They're very like TMZ like, very
it's like where to go,
where to
eat,
where to go. Bruno Mars was at this restaurant.
Yeah.
Katy Perry has a residency here.
Yeah.
And somebody who's from here, just not really interested in it, worked on the Strip. Yeah, it's cool for tourists and stuff. But I realized there's a lot of entrepreneurs in Vegas, but nobody's talking to them really. There was a few podcasts who had tried to do it and lost footing, or just like never branded themselves like
correctly
to correctly or to the right degree. So when the Strip closed down, I was out of a job. And I just had this like do or die moment where I was like, if I'm ever going to do this podcast, it's right now when everyone's literally sitting at home doing nothing.
Yeah.
So I decided to do the cannon method, where I was just going to shoot myself out of a cannon and just keep going. So I literally
You do a ton of them.
Yeah, I was doing 2 or 3 per week for probably about 18 months.
Wow. And you do all the editing, everything?
Everything.
Wow.
I did everything. Now I have an intern that helps, but for the first 150 episodes or so, everything was completely me, the marketing, editing, and I didn't know anything. So I learned it all from YouTube and asking friends for their advice and just learning through the guests that I had on.
And you brought up a couple of things that I love, and it's a pattern from everyone we've had on, including my background. Number one, and I follow this guy. I don't know if you know of Andrew Gazdecky. He owns MicroAcquire. It's a marketplace to buy and sell businesses, and I follow him on Twitter and on Instagram and LinkedIn. And one of the things he always says is, if you want to build your own business, get a job and use that capital to fund that business. Because, it's really hard to just jump into something with no money. You got to pay. Everyone has bills to pay. So number one, you've done that. And then also the hard work and the level of effort you put into just learning on your own. There's so much information out there about everything, as long as you have the will to learn and to get better, and to wear multiple hats, like, the more successful you'd be. So it's so cool to kind of hear that from you as well.
Appreciate that.
See that. Yeah.
I think one of the best traits anyone could possess is curiosity. I've always been a very curious person to every degree. And during the pandemic and even right before then, I really took a heavy focus into trying to understand both sides of the aisle politically, understanding both sides of the economic spectrum and culturally. Yeah. And so I started listening to a bunch of podcasts and reading a bunch of books. Two modern day philosophers that I really love is Naval Ravikant. He's the co-founder of AngelList. He's very, very acclaimed in Silicon Valley and across the world now. He had this philosophy of specialized knowledge, or it might be specific knowledge. I think it's specific knowledge.
Okay.
And what he talks about is that if you could be in the top 20 percentile of 3 to 5 different industries, then you'll create something that's very specific to you that no one else can replicate. And then that's what your niche is. And then from the niche, then you go and build out and become a macro over time.
Gotcha.
And Scott Adams, he wrote Dilbert. He's the famous Dilbert comic strip guy who's now wrote many successful books. A little political now, so don't listen to him as much. But he in his first book, it's called How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. I believe that's the title.
Okay.
And he proposed this idea of skill stacking. And it's very similar to Naval's. And he talks about, similar to both of us, he's had many failed business attempts. He worked in the corporate life. Mm-hmm. But he said every business attempt, he learned 1 to 5 different skills. And so then over time, he realized that he just had this like basket of skills. Yeah. And so he decided to stack them all on top of each other, and similar to Naval, create something very specific to him that no one else can replicate. And that can be channeled into media or like a physical storefront, pretty much anything. Leadership, there's all these different principles. Yeah. So I started seeing the trend of a lot of leaders and successful people applying those same like philosophies. Yeah. And so I knew I was from Vegas. I was very good at networking and socializing, and I loved having conversation. And I wasn't afraid to fail in public. Yeah. So I turned it to me that culminated into the idea of the Guest List podcast. And also when the pandemic closed, crypto's like, to me, pools the most intellectual capital across the world. It's the industry to be in. And during the pandemic and leading up, everyone was talking about how if the world does shut down, this is just going to push the world into a heavy digital economy. Everything's going to be accelerated. Yep. A lot of the social norms that exist are all going to be crushed because everything's going to be basically reset, the Great Reset. Yeah. And so I thought of that.
Which is scary to think about. But
yeah, but this is where we are today. So many podcasts, YouTube channels, all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was a heavy critic of content creation for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call it like a clown and pony show.
Yeah.
For a long time, no one cared about being a YouTuber. And then I started looking at Gen Z. There was a study that came out, I think it was a few years ago, where it was like 51% of Gen Z wants to be an influencer of some sort.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
I was like, holy, like this has to mean something.
Sure.
This is sticking somewhere. And so after everything closed down and we were sitting around, and I was like, this is my do or die moment. Like, the world's going digital. I don't want to be in the industry anymore. I've wanted to be out of it for a while.
Yep.
There's a need for information. And so my first two guests were two nurses in Vegas. One of them, Kathy Chow, worked in the ICU division, the respiratory division, and she had one of the first COVID patients.
Oh, wow.
So both of them provide a lot of insight. Those two episodes did very well. Both of them had like 200 downloads in a week
Very
each.
timely, obviously.
And then about 2 episodes later, everything tanked, and it was like 5 downloads, 10 downloads. And I was like, what happened? Oh, my God. So I was just like, all right, this is my time to just focus on my charismatic skills, understand what is privy to me, and trying out different strategies. We talked about this before. My first 10 episodes, I wrote questions down.
Yep.
And then realized it just felt so forced, so robotic.
Yeah.
So I got rid of the questions, and obviously you struggle a little bit along the way
of
trying
course.
to find your grounding. But I would say after, I think it was around episode like 40 or 50 for me, where I was like, okay, I think this is like, I finally feel like this is me. It's comfortable.
Yep.
It's normal.
Yep.
You feel okay with messing up on camera, right? A lot of people in the beginning, you're like, I said this time, I want to cut it out, or I butchered this grammatical error.
Sure.
Something I do, which I still do, and I'm trying to fix, is I talk so fast, I tend to like skip words in the sentence. So I can see the guest trying to like piece together what I'm saying or the messaging.
Sure.
But you learn that over time and you become more comfortable with it. So after about episode 60 or so, and it was around December of 2020, the first year, I didn't have to hit up guests anymore. I just like PR companies, reporters, local news companies, friends referrals.
Very cool.
I was just getting such an onslaught of like referrals that I literally had to start saying no to people.
Oh, wow.
And I hate being a gatekeeper. This is one reason why I'm in crypto, is I don't like permissioned networks.
Yeah.
But now I had to start like saying no to people, which was unfortunate. You're almost like being the arbiter of truth.
And was that due
essentially.
to time, or was it more like you wanted to be selective of who you had on and not make it an advertisement? Like, what was the...
Yeah, it was time because I'm still editing everything, but I was getting 5 to 10 requests per week.
Wow.
So it's like there's just no way for that demand. Also with burning myself out.
Sure.
I had a few friends who were attempting to do 5 episodes per week, and they fizzled out within a few months.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
I'll do it once a month.
Right? And then once you do it so long, you feel like you're just saying the same message. Nothing's fresh. You have to consume more information. You need downtime to form different opinions. So at that point, then larger guests started coming on. Very early, I had Clark County Commissioner Michael Naft, who was a friend, friends of friends, came on big. And then I had on like Jay Wasley from Ghost Adventures and Jonathan Jostle, who owns the Plaza. And I was like, oh man, there's like real footing here.
Oh,
people like I had Kelly Fertitta came in to my apartment by herself. And I was like, I have a billion. I have a billionaire literally sitting across from me in my 400 square foot apartment by herself. And she told me she felt comfortable doing it. And I was like, okay, like that was like a big sign for me where I was like, if a woman who's very successful family feels comfortable coming by herself, then I probably have some sort of traction here.
Without doubt.
And I really focused early on trying to get as many women on. I always felt like women entrepreneurs in Vegas was a very underserved market.
Yeah.
Women run Las Vegas. I don't care what anybody says. I've preached this on my show a lot.
Yeah.
If you look at the strip, if all of the men disappeared, people would still come, right? If all the men employees, if all the women employees disappeared, no one would come.
No.
Right?
No,
so
very true.
so that's, and I learned that too being in the nightclub where the servers determine the busters' tip percentages. They basically can hold your finances like at a grip.
Yeah.
So after realizing all this, heavily focused on women, I had about a 3-to-1 almost. At one point after the first 100 episodes, I had like 35 women guests and 65 men.
Yeah.
Which the average for most men co-hosted shows is like 9-to-1.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was taking really good traction. I think people were starting to notice that because then a lot of the people who approached me referring guests were all women.
Yeah.
So I always felt like that was a good benefit. And then today, now it's called the Jake Gallen podcast because crypto took off obviously in 2021. I was a heavy investor in Dogecoin. In 2019, you could go through my tweets.
Yeah.
I was talking about how if the internet ever figured out what Dogecoin was, it was just going to absolutely rocket.
Yeah.
It exploded much higher than I ever anticipated, so I sold way too early. But there was something that happened where in, I believe it was February of 2021, and I was sitting at an amount that I had never had. Yeah. And I realized that if I sold everything right now, I could live off of this money for years. Yeah. And I could have that safety that financial safety net that had never existed. I'd always paid for my bills. I'd been supporting my parents my entire life since I'd got a job.
Yeah.
And to me, the thought was like, I could literally change my life with just clicking a button.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I would be an idiot to not do this. Obviously, I pressed sold and then it 10x higher. You're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But
at the time, you made the right decision.
Yeah. At the time, and to me, it was just like, there's like a sense of relief where I was like, now I can like actually make sound decisions without having to be overly aggressive, because that's what happens with a lot of people who are just getting into crypto or finance, is that you want to
volatile, right?
You want volatile. Same with stocks or people trading options. You just want to hit that home run.
Yeah.
You want to make that $1 million right off the start. And so after that, then I started figuring out, okay, what's my next strategy? This is when NFTs were starting to gain traction. And in March of 2021 was something that really changed my life, and you'll figure out here in a second. There was an NFT project called Mooncats, which is part of my brand now. It was called a rediscovery. And basically it was this NFT project that was created in 2017 that had been abandoned for 4 years. And since NFTs were blowing up, there were what's now called blockchain or NFT archaeologists were going through the blockchain history, finding abandoned projects through various methods.
Okay.
At the time, Mooncats were considered the second oldest NFT.
Oh, wow.
Today, they're probably like the 100th. So that just shows like how it like
found after.
Yeah, it like spurred this like movement.
Sure.
So I took like half of my Dogecoin profits and just like aped into Mooncats over the next few months. To me, it made sense. Digital artifacts, owned an antique store. So this is just the digital. This is just the digital extension of it.
Sure.
So after learning about NFTs more, really went hard now in what's called the historical NFT space. And another big break for me was in September. I was hit up by Sothebys Auction House. I don't know if you know who Sothebys Auction House is.
Yeah.
It's the largest auction house in the world.
Yeah.
And they were having a sale called Sotheby's Metaverse Natively Digital 1.2. They had done a NFT auction a few months before in April, but now they're doing a large one. This auction had 52 lots across 19 collectors.
Okay.
3 of those lots ended up being mine. Three Mooncats. So I hit 2 big wins. One was in August, I ended up selling a Genesis Mooncat for 70 ETH, which at the time was about 200,000. And then at Sotheby's Auction House, I had 3 Mooncats for sale, which sold for a little over 100K collectively.
Yeah. Wow.
Unfortunately, one of those was a 50K loss. So this is no discredit to Sotheby's. It helped me grow my brand just enormously. I don't think I would be at 7,000 Twitter followers without this kind of like anointment from the legacy.
Yeah.
But a lot of the sellers took massive losses. So I don't think Sotheby's was prepared to market it.
Yeah.
They did not. The thought was if Sotheby's.
Why would they take a loss? Explain that. Like
a lot of these collectors who had bought like the Genesis or one of the Mooncats I'd originally bought for was 32 ETH, and it ended up selling for 12 ETH.
Got it. Okay.
So what we had thought was that Sotheby's would bring in a lot of the traditional and like Sotheby's simps, I guess you could say.
It's not their game, right?
Right.
They're more old school.
And yeah, they didn't. Apparently, one person that was an old school bought 2 of my cats, but a lot of people took L's. I was one of them. Got to ride off in Texas, so it was kind of cool learning about that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
but it really, yeah, my Twitter account went from 2,000 to 5,000 within that month. Just like going on like these Twitter Spaces. There was an article where my name was next to Paris Hilton and Steve Aoki.
Oh, cool.
I went by Cat Dad. That's like my pseudonym.
Yeah.
It was like Cat Dad, Steve Aoki, and Paris Hilton are selling at Sothebys auction house. And I was like, this is a weird simulation. I would have never expected. So got to talk in at Twitter Spaces with Steve Aoki. Paris Hilton didn't show up.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool because I told him, I literally used to serve your tables at Omnia nightclub.
True, right?
In the DJ booth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of cool that we're now in this kind of similar situation where now we're sharing the stage instead of me having to be behind the stage serving your bottle service.
Yeah, exactly.
So from that point on and right beforehand, I decided, okay, this is where I'm going to insert myself into the crypto and NFT space. So I started doing YouTube content, and now recently, towards the end of 2021, converted the Guestless podcast into the Jake Gallen podcast to give me freedom to interview whoever I want.
So it's not just crypto; it's still entrepreneur. It's a mix.
Yes,
both?
right. So recently now, I'm putting my attention only on NFTs. That's where the interest is. There's a lot of I try to just see myself as a filler or a problem solver.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of information on historical NFTs. A lot of these are just being undiscovered. So now I'm just interviewing a lot of these like investors, project founders, trying to help put out as much information and also still build the brand as well.
And how are you finding them? Are they finding you online or?
Yeah, now the brand is a little bit large enough to where some of them find me. I still actively go out and seek them.
Okay.
Because the historical space is still niche compared to the overall NFT space.
Yeah.
NFTs, OpenSea just passed like 1.2 million NFT traders, which if you think about it is tiny compared to the world. There's 300 million people in the world who own cryptocurrency of some sort.
Yeah.
So very small, very niche. But also in 2021, I'll get to the native research side.
Yeah.
As I was building the Guestless podcast, somebody reached out to me who just said very simply, hey, I'm a big fan of your show. I know you have a tech background. You should come meet me at Blackfire Innovation where I work. I didn't know what that was. I thought I was walking into an office.
Sure.
I walked into a multi-million-dollar facility that's owned by UNLV and Caesars, and I was like, what is this place?
Yeah.
Just opened up. The woman we ended up having a 3-hour conversation about crypto, the future of Vegas technology.
Where was this located?
Blackfire Innovation. It's off of Durango and Sunset.
And what do they do?
It's a 144-acre property that's owned by UNLV.
Okay.
Blackfire Innovation is a hospitality innovation center, but they're now building multiple buildings on top of it. They're building now like a campus. They want it to be the tech hub for Las Vegas.
Interesting. We need it here.
Yep. That property I found out was gifted to UNLV from Oscar Goodman in the late 90s when there was literally nothing out there.
Gotcha. Okay.
So massive property. It's called the Harry Reid Research and Technology Park.
Okay.
So at that time, I brought my business partner, Chris, at the time to the second interview, had another 3-hour conversation, and we decided to start hosting crypto meetups at Blackfire Innovation.
Okay.
I
think I've seen that online.
So we've had very successful ones, and we generally get about 50 to 100. Simultaneously, my buddy started Las Vegas NFT, and so then there was NFT meetups. Theirs is more grassroots at bars. Ours is a professional setting, presentation, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The meetups ended up being very successful, and our thesis was that crypto and Vegas have so many parallels that Vegas is going to be a crypto hub of some sort. Eventually, over time, after many meetups, we decided that it's probably more likely that Vegas is going to become an NFT hub. And what we mean by this is that if you look at crypto across the country, there's small hubs that are starting to pop up. Texas is leading in Bitcoin mining. Florida and Miami is leading in Bitcoin adoption.
Mm-hmm. You
have now Colorado just legalized tax payments with Bitcoin. You can now pay your taxes with Bitcoin in Colorado.
Interesting.
So they're going more on the east side. Wyoming is leading in crypto legislation. So as it becomes more west, the new sectors of crypto become more prevalent within the different places.
Mm-hmm.
And with NFTs and NFT, simply for those who don't know, it just assigns digital ownership.
Yeah.
So what that means is it has never existed. An easy example is games, right? So if you buy a skin or let's say digital apparel in Fortnite,
Yeah.
you can't take that skin outside of Fortnite.
Correct.
But if you make that skin an NFT, then you can take that skin and wear it in multiple games. Because now it's digitally owned. You could prove that you own that and place it into multiple games.
Okay.
So this is basically, that's the simple version.
Yeah.
Now NFTs can resemble access tokens like tickets. They could be obviously art and collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
They can be memberships of some sort. And more importantly to me, what caught my eye is they could represent experiences. You could say this NFT, like Gary Vee. Do you know who Gary Vee is?
Oh, yeah.
He came out with an NFT project, pretty innovative at its time. Still interesting to see where it will lead. He has an NFT project called VeFriends. And out of I think there's 10,000 tokens. There's like 500 of them that represent IP to Gary Vee. One is called like Podcast Panther, where if you own this on a certain date, Gary Vee will come on your podcast. One's like FaceTime something. You could FaceTime with him. One's like you get lunch with him. The big one is called Empathy Elephant.
And how do you access them? How do you purchase them?
You could buy them on OpenSea, which is like the biggest NFT marketplace.
Okay.
Right
my
now,
wife showed me that. She's been busting my balls. She's been like, you need to get an NFT. You guys create all this artwork. And I'm like, I don't even understand it. So
right now, NFT space is OpenSea commands like 80 to 90% of the volume. It'd be like the entire world shopping at one Walmart. It's kind of like where the NFT space is. Very primitive, not a lot of utilities or not a lot of options.
Okay.
So Gary Vee's project, the big one is Empathy Elephant, which kind of like was like the aha moment for me. If you own that, you can brand your own wine within his Empathy Wines brand. So what is that actually worth? If you could brand your own wine within Gary Vee's collection, I think it recently sold for like 500,000.
Yeah.
To me, that's probably worth more than 500,000 because of his community that exists. It's very like cult-like following.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So you'll see that sell. And then also with NFTs, you could tie in a royalty to where anytime an NFT in that collection sells, the creator gets a royalty. So this does wonders for artists of, painting of the physical world or musical artists.
It's a one-time sale.
Yeah, who get nickel and dimed by the agencies who take 50% of their revenue. Now you could or like art galleries who take a percentage if it sells.
Sure.
Now instead of paying 30% to the art gallery, you could just distribute your art directly to the consumer, tie in a 2% royalty, and anytime it flips.
Are a lot of artists taking advantage of this?
Yes. Now obviously greed steps in play. People have taken the royalty fee up to 10%, which is wild. Anything that's over 5%, I don't even participate in.
Sure.
To me, it's more greed.
And you search for those on OpenSea?
On OpenSea, yeah. It'll show you the creator royalty. OpenSea takes a 2.5% royalty.
And how do you know if there's value in it? Like, is it just something
it comes down to the creator or the art. NFTs are like a wild, wild west. People are still trying to determine it. An example I like to use is, let's take a car in the real world and the same car, right? If somebody distributes, or if you buy, let's say, a Corvette, right, or a Lamborghini, and now you have that same Lamborghini as an NFT, there's many things you could do that are similar. I could buy both of them. I could sell both of them. I could loan against them. In the real world, I could destroy both of them, one digitally, one in the real world.
Sure.
In the real world, I could repair it, right? I could fix it mechanically. I could trade it, which is both the same. But there's some things in the real world you can't do digitally, and then it's the same digitally. So if now I have the digital Lamborghini, I can program on top of it. I could change the skin colors, which you could do in the real world. So a lot of them are very similar, just in the digital representation of it.
Sure.
But also I can take that Lamborghini and I can hang it on the wall in my digital room, which you can't take Lamborghini to hang on the wall. It's obviously too heavy to do that.
Sure.
So because it's programmable and just code, there's a lot more things you could do with it in this digital world. And I think a lot of the experimentation and speculation, because of how high these are selling, is because we're still trying to figure out what that actually means.
Yeah,
because
so the value's high right now because it's so small and not a lot of knowledge, right?
Also, just so many people have made so much money in crypto that the regulations that sit in place prevent them from spending it on real world items. So they're just going to go spend it somewhere. A lot of they say when Bitcoin hits 150K, half of the world's billionaires will be Bitcoin billionaires.
Yeah.
So it shows you the amount of money and wealth that's been created, which is awesome. It's redistributing wealth. But we want to spend it places. We want to spend it on coffee, which Lightning is trying to do.
Isn't Tesla accepting it now? Or
they did. They took it back.
Okay.
There's what some companies have found though is that a lot of people just prefer holding their Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so that goes down to a protocol level depending on what you're spending in the cryptocurrency.
How does it work tax wise?
Everything's a taxable event. Crypto in America is classified as property.
Okay.
So every crypto transaction, crypto to dollar transaction is a taxable event of long-term or short-term gains. Mm-hmm. But now you go down to El Salvador where crypto is considered a currency. They were the first country to ever legalize Bitcoin. So it's treated like dollars. There's no taxable events on anything. Still learning on how that will turn out. I think most countries will eventually adopt it as a currency of some sort. Russia's about to also classify it as legal tender, so that they have a different reasoning though. They're going around the sanctions of what's existing right now. You saw with all the financial disbandment of Visa and stuff out of Russia. Yep. They can just use Bitcoin and crypto instead to go around those sanctions. Whether that's the good and the bad thing about having a decentralized currency or protocol is that it can be used for good and bad. Yeah. But the good farly outweighs the bad.
There's like a lot of money laundering and stuff like that goes on.
There is, but the thing about crypto is that it's all a public ledger. So you could trace everything to where it's going to. So all you have to do is really just put some effort in and figure it out. Obviously, the person's name isn't on it unless it's an ENS. Yeah. So it just looks like a bunch of numbers and letters, but you can follow the money and see where it goes. And you could do what's called blacklisting a wallet, which doesn't cut off access. They still have control, but you're just labeling this as like illicit activity of some sort on this wallet. And so then exchanges in America then block those wallets or the path of the currency coming from that wallet to entering their exchange.
Makes sense. Okay.
It's a wild place. So
without a doubt.
Going a little bit back from that tangent. So at Blackfire,
I'm trying to figure out what was in my coffee before.
Right. So after we had a bunch of these successful meetups, my business partner Chris and I, we founded Native Research. We realized that there needed to be some sort of front man or front people in Vegas to help people direct where to go, whether it's for information or they need a strategy or they want to pay us for consultation. So we created this very like generalized idea, Native Research. We called it research because banks don't like working with crypto companies. So if you say research, then they're generally a little bit more lenient with it. Yeah. Also, we had advisement from UNLV that if we said research, it's more likely that the university will work with us as well, and the city of Las Vegas. Okay. So after about 6 or 7 meetups, we started seeing this large traction of professionals coming up to the meetups. We had gaming control board members, which everyone told us is like revolutionary. They're like, they don't come out to anything. We had 3 of 8 gaming control board members there. No kidding. At the January meetup. We started seeing representatives from banks, US.
When did you start it again? All the meetups? Recently, right?
May of 2020. Or 2021, I mean. Okay. So we're coming up on a year, pretty close.
Got it, okay.
We do it once a month, last Tuesday of the month. From 2 to 5 p.m. at Blackfire Innovation, same place. Yeah, we do it that time because professional building, they close at 5, all these different things that come from it. Yep. The other NFT meetups are generally later. They're at a bar, a little bit more laid back. We do like presentations. We have different specific topics of speakers, DeFi, NFTs, gaming, real estate. So we try to keep it a wide array. And the reason why we also did the meetups is we wanted to bootstrap the community. We wanted to see who the players were in the city. Yeah. I still come across new players, but we wanted to see who's a builder, who's an investor, who's interested, who just wants to come learn. Like we have all different backgrounds. So we started seeing.
How advanced is it? Like, let's say I showed up.
No, it's very open. There are some presentations that become a little bit more technical, but I've had we've had a lot of guests that have came say that even the technical presentations, even they're open their eyes to kind of like, oh, this is just computer programming language. Yeah. Some people think of it as like religion, very ambitious kind of thing. And you realize like crypto is just code. That's all it is at the end of the day. Yeah. But that's how we live in like an open source world and all these different things. So I try to like take this like spray approach where I just throw all these different ideas and try to see what sticks, because crypto permeates all different industries. Whether it's art, political realm, financial realm, right? Geopolitics, entertainment, everything. So for some people, for me, what clicked, obviously I got into crypto in 2017, but for me, NFTs clicked with digital artifacts.
Which is
right, because that was my background, not my past, so that and I kind of see this trend happening a lot, where it's something in your past, ends up being crypto ends up finding its way into some of your past interests, and then they're like, oh, it's like a aha moment.
It's so funny you say that, because I brought this up on the last. Every person that's been on this podcast, something they did before led to where they're at, which sounds like cliche and common sense, right? But there's always like a pivotal job or some sort of moment that was like, okay, this is what I like to do, or this is where my interest lies, which is kind of interesting, I think.
It is. Yeah, it is. You never know. It's the idea of like skill stacking and specific knowledge. It's something that always leads to the future, but then it's usually multiple combinations of that of your whole life.
Exactly.
So after having these meetups and banks and gaming, not even just gaming control board members, but private gaming companies, and we started seeing this massive community forming, I started being approached by the city of Las Vegas, the gaming control board, to help them. So I have like monthly calls with the city of Las Vegas on trying to figure out their crypto strategy.
Yeah.
They're very interested. We're trying to create now like a blockchain advisory board for the city to try to help mitigate some of the indecisions and insecurities surrounding it. For what I've learned from talking with people I've talked with now, probably close to 10 different city officials, is that a lot of them are interested, but they don't know how to go about that interest.
Sure.
And they don't want to put themselves in a public meetup with moon boys and people talking about Lambos and flipping monkey pictures and stuff.
Sure.
To them, it's like it takes away their credibility, right? Now they look inferior. So what we're trying to do is like having private like educational seminars with some of these executives, because it's not even just an ego thing. It becomes more of like a power thing. You don't want to take that power away.
So it's more of it's a consulting business, essentially, what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Now, are you getting paid to do the consultation, or is it right now you're just pumping out free knowledge like you did on your podcast?
I'm a big believer in free knowledge.
Yeah.
We've had many potential clients lined up. We did have one company worth $4 billion that we had signed NDAs with and everything. They actually ended up getting sued recently for a project that they just released. So I won't name the name, but we're supposed to come back to that. But that was supposed to be a pretty large private contract that we were going to work with them. And so we weren't taking many clients before that.
Yeah.
But what we've learned is like we partnered up with like Startup Nevada, which is the largest accelerator out here. They send us their potential clients who are in crypto. And what we've learned is a lot of these people who are interested in crypto, once we start laying out like the amount of time and effort and capital that takes to do these projects, a lot of them start getting cold feet.
Sure.
So we kind of get to the second stage. We've never gotten to the third conversation with anybody yet. The third conversation is pretty much like
what kind of investment would it take approximately?
It depends. To get a little technical, the price is determined by the complexity of the project. With smart contracts, from a simple like 10K art project, it's one contract. If you want to do something in terms of like DeFi, game kind of like financial instrument, you could get up to 6-7 contracts, and that could get into about 100, 150, 200K.
Yeah.
The lower end, to deploy a simple contract, it only takes about half an ETH.
Okay.
But now there's programs starting to pop up where you could use this automated software to deploy your own contracts.
Interesting.
But for the first year, you did what's called a lazy mint or a shared contract through OpenSea, where they also control the contract.
Okay.
So it's not decentralized. And now what we've seen happen is OpenSea's now gone back and started deleting Iranian and Russian based IP contracts.
Okay.
Because they own part of the contract. So you could be censored.
Interesting. We're running out of time, unfortunately, because I could talk to you for like 5 hours.
No kidding.
Super awesome having you on, Jake. So where can people find you, and is there anything you wanted people to check out?
I'm easy. Just Jake. You just type in Jake Gallen, JKEGALLEN. If you want crypto content, most active on Twitter.
Okay.
Instagram is more for like entrepreneurship.
Okay.
But I'm starting to kind of merge those. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jake Gallen. Just type it in if you want to see more content from everything. And then the podcast is Jake Gallen Podcast. Or you go to jakegallen.com, which should be launched here in the next week or two. So,
sweet.
Awesome, which you helped me with. So,
awesome.
It all comes full circle.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, I appreciate everything. It was really interesting to learn about it. And when's your next meetup?
Last Tuesday of the month.
Last Tuesday of the month.
Every time, last Tuesday of the month, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Blackfire. It's posted on all of my channels, so you'll see more information on that, but the time and date doesn't change as all. So
cool, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. It was
appreciate it.
Incredible conversation.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
See ya.